This is John SCHABEN of the Dunlap Livestock Auction coming to you on Tuesday morning, May 5th. We're just getting ready to start our weekly cattle auction where we sell fed cattle, weigh up cows and bulls. And we'll have a few feeder cattle. We had a big special on Friday, and so there won't be many feeders today. And then tomorrow will be our cow, calf, and breeding bull sale, where it's looking like we could have 500 head on that auction. So should have a good one to show you then. The reason I'm doing this video this morning is last night I was watching on television one of the rural ag networks, and the CEO of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association was on, and the moderator was asking questions, obviously pertaining to the industry, most of which would be COVID-related questions, and as you might expect, pretty well versed and knowledgeable in the subject matter that he was given the questions. And then probably halfway through or so, they actually had a segment where you could call in with a question, and I grabbed my phone and, believe it or not, got through. My question was pertaining to country of origin labeling. Just a quick background there. I do understand and know the policies of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. They're pretty put your foot down kind of a policy. They oppose mandatory country of origin labeling. It's not, some of the state affiliates have kind of said that they support a voluntary system, which is of the same thing, but the National Cattlemen have went even a step farther to make sure and emphatically drive it into the ground that they oppose any mandatory system and use it from always a mandatory standpoint. You know, we don't like a government mandate, unless that government mandate happens to be supporting a federally mandated checkoff, or actually going through a system today that they'd like to put in place to have a federally mandated bureaucratic nightmare of national animal ID. So it probably should he probably should state that you only want a voluntary system when it works best for the people that best speak for you. So, but my question wasn't pertaining to whether or not the cattlemen have policies supporting cool. It wasn't stated why. They've made it clear why. I don't agree with those opinions. In fact, I've been very critical of them for the last 5 years. But my question pertained to, which has got a lot of headline news here in the last year, the concept of being able to bring foreign product in and repackage it and relabel it as product of the USA. And so the question pertained, and I used the words consumer fraud. Did the CEO feel it's consumer fraud when this happens? And of course the answers would be, if you're me, the answer is yes, I do think it's consumer fraud. If the answer is no, then the second part of the question would be, well, why? Why do you think that it's not, and why do you think it's okay that we allow that system to happen? So I got the blanket textbook, or the listeners all did, I guess, the textbook about why the association supports voluntary cool, things of that nature, and then, of course, the question that I asked didn't get answered. I'm going to give the CEO the benefit of the doubt that you just get to rambling. At least I know I will, and I kind of can lose my point of thought pretty fast sometimes. And so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he didn't answer my question, not because he chose not to, was that he just kind of forgot. So I know this video will probably not find it to the desk of the president or the paid executive officer of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, but I would guess it might pass through some people that could get it there, or could get that question up, or those that know me and can give the answer to it. I guess I would be interested to find it. I'd send that same challenge out to the head of the Cattlemen's Beef Board, the paid head of the Cattlemen's Beef Board, of why they think, yes or no, is it a consumer fraud issue that we bring foreign product in and repackage it and then pass it off as made in the USA, or product of the USA, excuse me, and to see what their answer is. When I use the word challenge, I kind of got to thinking about this the other day. Facebook has all kinds of challenges, right? I remember the one going around a couple years ago, which was the ice bucket challenge for ALS, and having directly some friends whose parents were afflicted with that. That was a pretty simple one to pay into. I didn't do the physical challenge. I just took the easy way out and paid into it. But I thought maybe right now we ought to do a fed steer challenge, since I've had cattle on the show list for 5 weeks and can't get a bid on them. That maybe I'd just give a couple, 3 away to our food bank here in town, or the local food banks, and get them out. If I could get these questions answered and publicly answered as to why they think it's okay, or if they don't think it's okay, then why we're not doing something about it, and why it isn't getting addressed, which will lead into obviously a bigger question of the whole concept of country of origin labeling. Quickly, I'm going to bring a sheet up about some myths that they said that have been going around and have been being addressed, and I'd like to talk that. But I do want to make one quick mention about, before I had commented about that, we create this system and the importers get to come in and take advantage of it. And I've had 10 phone calls in the last few days that have pointed out to me that the importers pay $1 check off to get in. And thanks for pointing it out, but that's actually something I did know. And there are several things that I get reminded of all the time that I don't, but I did know that. But let me give you an example of why that logic is flawed. So tomorrow we're going to have a cow, we're going to have a breeding animal sale, and we're going to sell a cow-calf pair. And this cow is that I'm describing is going to be a 10-year-old cow, a decent calf on, and I've got a customer that just wants to clean up a little grass around his acreage, and he's going to buy that cow-calf pair and run her all summer and then bring her back this fall. So we're going to assess a check off on that cow-calf pair on Wednesday for $2, one for the cow and one for the calf. And then he's going to run him in his pasture there for a few months and bring him back this fall and sell that calf again and sell the whey cow back. So the whey cow's going to get it again, and she probably got it at least once or twice more in her life through the process if she was sold as a bred heifer and then maybe return bought as a 5 or 6 year old cow. So she's paid check off a few times, but the calf's paid one already. Now he's going to pay a second one when he comes back in the fall. There's a better than 50% chance that calf's going to get bought by a backgrounder in our market. Probably more like an 85 or 90% chance. Not somebody that's going to buy that calf to finish it out. So they're going to take that calf to weigh 750 or 800. And there'll be a freaky time where they take him to 6, and then a 6 takes him to 9, and you could add another $1 in there. But this time so we paid it as a calf. Now we're gonna pay it at 4. Then when the backgrounder buys him, we're gonna pay it at 8, and then when the finisher does it, so that calf paid $4 of check off in that calf's lifetime. So obviously we pay plenty into that system, and we pay it into a system that we've created, and we've created this whole system that's looked upon by, I think, most of the world. That's a pretty neat and a pretty ideal system of raising great product, nutritious, wholesome, healthy, and all those things. And we let an importer get into that same system. And remember, when that importer comes in, the importer comes in with cheaper production costs, because they're going to have significantly cheaper production costs than the American-made animal, and they're going to get to sell at the same price. Now, I don't think I have to say any more to wonder why anybody would question that system. And so I guess I'm looking is, you give me the example, then why they get to repackage it and everything else. And if he'll come on publicly, assuming I can get somebody to bid on my fat cattle in the next 4, 5, or 6 months, I'll make sure and get the money sent right in here to our local food bank, and I'll happily do it and accept that challenge. You got to admit, folks, that whole concept is crazy. Now, I do want to, there was a couple notes that I had received about a few things that I'd said, and somebody said, well, you're claiming that mandatory cool is a solution to all our problems. And I'll give you the response back to that real quick. I never claimed that mandatory cool was a solution to our problems. What I have claimed is that voluntary cool is part of our problem. And it is part of our problem. And so one thing that can help correct our problem is to start chipping away at things that cause it. Right? That only makes sense in everything. So it is one part of the cause that they took mandatory country of origin labeling. In fact, the response back to that was that under the former MCOOL laws, this was stated to me, country of origin labeling did not apply to most imported beef because it was used in food service, not retail. I'm guessing that when the Cool Law was first written, it wasn't written that way. And by the time that Packers and the importers got it lobbied down, that's what we got. They've got great lobbyists. That's what lobbyists do. They get laws tweaked and changed to make it more beneficial for them. So I would say that was wrong. And when we get mandatory cool instituted, that it applies to everything. And I would question why it didn't. It would only make sense that it applies to everything. And it's pretty simple. If you can't keep your origin, if you can't keep it intact, and then you sell it of unknown origin. I'm not, folks, nowhere here have I said that we're not going to import product. I understand why we import product. But nowhere do I have any of you coming back to say what a disadvantage it puts to the American cow-calf producer. What a disadvantage it puts on the consumer that wants to know. The consumer that doesn't want to know or doesn't care will purchase their products accordingly. And remember, the consumer that is looking for the cheapest protein source isn't choosing beef. That consumer's got other choices out there. The pork system is set up so that we can see how much pork we can produce and see how cheap we can sell it. They've kind of thrown quality out the window. They've done everything else. If you get a good barbecue product or you get something to kind of flavor it up, it's a fine product. And so the consumer that's out here trying to source as cheap as they can has that option. If we try to run down that road, which we did, by the way, before, we're going to lose that battle because our production costs don't allow it. And honestly, a non-vertigrated system is going to increase. There's no doubt it does. Obviously, when you vertigrate the system 100%, it's going to make it better from your low-cost standpoint. I've never argued that. And you're going to say, well, crazy, then we just need to integrate our system anymore. What I have argued, I'm a livestock auction market owner. I have argued for myself that integrated system, the auction has no place in that system. The independent producer has no place in that system. And so with one without the other, they don't exist. If we don't have independent producers, we don't have auction markets. If we don't have auction markets, we don't have independent producers. So that's where this comes from. Second thing I want to mention is on back of that, they pointed out to me that when mandatory cool was the law, the compliance costs were outrageous. With additional costs on every segment of the supply chain that led to closure of feedlots and packing plants across the country. Well, you're going to have to give me the example of the feedlots and the packing plants that closed because of country of origin labeling. Okay? I don't see that. I don't see that at all. Were there packing plant closures? Absolutely, they closed some plants. The plants themselves closed them so they could put a handle on supply. That have got us in the mess that we're in today. So to say they closed because of cool that is not even remotely telling the whole story. And then to say that every segment of the supply chain hurt them from a cost standpoint. I hope producers are a big part of the supply chain. I sure think they are. And auction markets are a part of the supply chain. At least I think they are. It basically, other than a little, we had to keep a paper on file that they checked already, that they were checking because of the feed affidavits and everything else that were already forced upon us. All they had to do was check, was it product of the, it was done. The compliance issue for the producers was done immediately at basically zero cost. That's fact. So it's not fact to say that every segment of that chain had to pay for it. Folks, it's obvious and never talked about that it puts the importers and the packers at a significant advantage to be able to import product cheaper and sell it off for the same price. And this isn't a Packer bash session. I would do it if I was Packers, and I would have lobbied to get rid of country of origin labeling if I was a Packer. Heck yes. It was a cost they incurred, and if they could get rid of it, they weren't going to incur that cost anymore. And then in turn, they were going to source cheaper product and sell it for the same price. It was a windfall. So I get why they did it. I just don't get why our cattlemen's organization went to bat for them. That's all. The Packers have their American Meat Institute. They have a great lobby. They do a good job at it. A lot better than we do. We don't need to give them any help. They're getting that part. They're getting along fine. I'm going to tell you where I do. And folks, this isn't a Packer bash session. I would hate to be in their position today of what they're dealing with COVID. I can't imagine what that must be like to try to keep their workers healthy, to try to keep their plants open, to try to keep a production system going. And unfortunately, this industry is getting smacked for it. But I also understand that right now, if you offer least resistance to a packer, if you're a contractor or in some kind of a formula price, you're at least getting your product, you're getting shackle space. Boy, doesn't it sound back like when the hogs went to $8? There's big problems with that. And we can address them in different times. But I thought you'd all like to know about what happened there last night on the show. I think it'd be perfectly fine to call the National Cattlemen's Beef Association and ask them for answers direct into that. And if, like I said before, if I got any friends listening that want to get it out there, I've thrown the challenge out there. Again, this is John SCHABEN with the Dunlap Livestock Auction. Thank you.